feel like God's done some things He wanted to do here tonight. And I feel like there's some folks that got prayed for. I know there's something that got prayed for tonight that really, God was trying to move on somebody's life tonight, and He just really didn't want to be moved. The thing that I think is probably most frustrating as a pastor is that you see God dealing with people's lives, and they don't really want their lives dealt with.
Right, amen.
I think we get comfortable in our misery.
Good.
Yeah.
I think we get comfortable in our sorrow. We get comfortable in our oppression. We get comfortable in our depression. We get comfortable because it's like an old blanket.
Right.
It's familiar. I woke up this morning and my wife she had a hard time sleeping last night. She had a severe headache and congested. And, she had gotten in the shower. Sometimes the only relief that she gets is getting in the shower as hot as she can stand it on her skin. And the steam opens up her airways, and then she'll put a wash rag wet. She'll put it in the microwave and get it as hot as she can stand to touch it. And put it on her eye, and opens up that sinus cavity.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night. She's not in bed, and I can look and I know where she's at. She's reclined in the recliner with a rag on her face, wrapped up in a familiar blanket. Now, if I walked up to you and I stuck a rag on your face that had been in a microwave for a minute and was steaming hot, you'd probably punch me in the mouth. Okay, if I just walked up to her and just went and just sizzled her face with that, she'd probably knock me out. It's pretty tough. But if I told you there was no hot water, you'd have to take a shower in the hot. If I told you there was no cold water, you'd have to take a hot shower. You'd probably say, well, I'm not taking a shower then. But even in that pain, it's familiar. You know what I mean? Because you know that pain is going to give you some relief. Are you with me?
Amen.
And so we get comfortable, and it's frustrating because you know that God is well able. You know that God is willing. You know God wants to. You know God has already paid the price and is well able to do whatever it is that His children ask of Him. We know that God is able to touch our lives because He has in the past, or you wouldn't be here today, because you know that God is able to touch your life in a way that nobody else can touch it. So it's easy to come to church hoping that God is going to do it all by Himself, and I don't have to do anything, and God's going to do it.
Right.
I just don't think that's scriptural. That you don't have to do anything and God do everything.
Right. Come on.
Even salvation, Jesus paid a fantastic, amazing price, but you have to do something to receive it.
Amen.
It's a free gift, but you have to ask for it.
Amen.
You with me? And so I think sometimes as a church setting, and especially when you've been in church a longer period of time than, like this morning, not this Brother Dean, but the other Brother Dean, he was sitting on the edge of his seat waiting for me to say something. Where everybody else was like waiting for me to shut up. Not everybody, but you know what I'm saying. Because when it's fresh and it's new, you're so excited to hear something from God. Well, it got quiet when I said that, didn't it? It got quiet when I said that. But I know my voice gets familiar. You hear me all the time. I know my voice and then the way that I preach and my style of preaching. I know that it gets familiar. And I understand that. And I get that. And that's why I have different people come sometimes. And that's why we have Tommy and Dean and David and Lisa and whoever preach. Because I want you to have a different voice. And they have words that God's given them. And they need to preach as well. And so and it's hard sometimes just to hear the same voice over and over, because it just becomes like background noise. It's just noise. That's why I'm trying to cut myself out of some things, and it's hard for me. But I'm trying to cut myself out of some things, because I don't want to just have a familiar voice to where you don't hear me anymore. I want you to be able to hear me. I'm going to preach just a little bit. I'm not going to preach all of it, but I'm going to preach a little bit of it that I think God has laid on my heart to preach. When I was back here, I knew I was going to preach the whole thing. And I said, well, God, what do you want me to preach about it? And I believe this is the part that God would have me to preach to you tonight. It said, can you handle being blessed? If you are blessed, can you handle it? And I know I've preached in similar things before, but I want to ask you a couple of questions. I've never gone at it this direction. Are you willing to give up your comfort for blessing? Are you willing to give up your desire for comfort? Are you willing to give up your blanket, Linus? Are you willing to give up the most precious thing that is hanging on to you and it identifies you? Anybody my age knows who Linus is when you see a cartoon character with a blanket. Now, the younger people don't really know who Linus is, because when Charles Schultz died, Peanuts really isn't a big thing anymore, but I couldn't wait. See, we didn't have Cartoon Network, so Saturday morning was it, man. Saturday morning, and then you had the specials. You had the Christmas specials. It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. You had those, and we couldn't wait for those to come on because it was a cartoon, and in the middle of the evening. Couldn't wait. And so we didn't have all the Cartoon Network, we didn't have all that stuff, and Nickelodeon, and all that, and Boomerang, and all that stuff. And so we were so excited when a cartoon came on. Now, if you'll think about this, that in the late 60s, the Flintstones was a primetime television show. Yeah. I wasn't alive then, but it was. Flintstones. They're a modern Stone Age family, right? From the town of Bedrock. A page out of history. Let's ride with the family down the street through the courtesy of Fred's 2 feet. Most people don't know that word. They messed that up. But so we understand that we know that it was amazing. So Linus is identified as the kid with the blanket. Which one of the kids played the piano? Schroeder. Right? Amen? And so on the sports animal, the guy whose last name is Schroeder, George Schroeder, and when he comes on, they play that music. And so I just love, and just think about it, they're identified by their character, that they have the blanket. Charlie Brown had, what color was his t-shirt? Somebody help me. Yellow with a black W stripe on his zigzag stripe, right? What color was Snoopy? White. That's probably racist now, but he was white. Okay, his white had a black dot. I guess we probably covered all of our bases. Woodstock was what? Yellow. Yellow bird, right? Yeah. Okay, so we're identified by our characteristics, and so sometimes in church we are identified by our characteristics, and we hang on to those because that gives us identity. Right. Say, for example, don't answer these questions. Okay? Somebody's the gripey. Somebody's the complainer. Someone's the over-the-top glad. Someone's over-the-top sad. There's somebody that hangs on to those because that's my identity, and I identify. I'm Schroeder. I'm Linus. I'm Peppermint Patty. Whatever, okay, whatever it is, but you hang on to those because that's your identity, and if I get rid of that, then who am I?
Right. Good.
Help me now.
Come on.
All right. We treat God's house, how we treat God's house determines our blessing. What do you mean by that? How do you come in the house of God? How do you come in here? With your blanket? With your piano? With your little dog? With your little bird? With a football ready for somebody to try to kick it? Come on. How do you come in the house of God? Do you come in with your identity so everybody can see who you are? Or do you come in here ready to worship God? Ready to be blessed because I'm going to lay down who I am because God can transform who I am. God takes serious how we appreciate this, how we appreciate His house. I think God takes that serious. I think God is serious about what we do in the house of God. The Bible says, it doesn't say something about this, I'm paraphrasing, but it doesn't say, I was glad when they said, let's go into the house of the Lord. Not sad.
Right, amen. Right.
Not dragged to the house of the Lord. Not come because I have to in the house of the Lord. Not because somebody made me. Somebody will look down at me if I don't come. No, I was glad when they said, let us come into the house of the Lord. Let's turn to Matthew chapter 25, verses 15 through 30. It's the story of the talents, and you guys are already quiet, so I'm going to get it out really fast. Matthew 25, 15 through 30. It's the story of the talents. I'm getting there. Keep your pages turned, which are mine. All right, ready?
Hey.
And so one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Now, I'll read 14 because I left that out. For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling in a far country who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. They were identified by the amount of talents they got. The first, he gave 5 talents. So he's the 5 talent servant. The second, he gave 3. Right? I'm sorry, 2. I'm sorry. There was 3 left, is what I'm sorry, it was in my head. And so the second he gave 2. And the other one he gave 1. And so you have a 5 talent servant, a 2 talent servant, and a 1 talent servant. They're identified by the talents that God the master has given them. And so they take their talents and they do what they're supposed to do with them. In verse 16 he says, and he who had received the 5 talents went and traded them and made another 5 talents. And likewise he who had received 2 gained 2 more also. But he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground and hid the Lord's money. After a long time the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered me 5 talents. Look, I have gained 5 more besides them. And the Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You are faithful over a few things. I will make you a ruler over many things. Enter to the joy of the Lord. He also who had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, you delivered me 2 talents. Look, I have gained 2 more talents besides them. And the Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. Thou art faithful over a few things. I'll make you a ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord. And he who had received this 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you were a hard man, reaping where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, here is what is yours. But the Lord answered and said to him, you wicked and lazy servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I have not scattered seed. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. Therefore, take the talent from him that gave it to has 10 talents. For to everyone who has more will be given, and to him that is in abundance. But from him who does not have, even that he has will be taken away, and cast the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now listen, it's the story of the talents. Now listen, hear me. You know who God is. You know that you've received talents from God. You know, just because you have that blanket, that doesn't identify you wholly, it just identifies you outwardly. You may have something that God has given you. He may give you, I don't know what, just put whatever it is in there. God has given you this ability. And you know that God is looking for a return on that ability. Because I'm telling you, if God has called you to do something, and you don't do what it is that God's called you to do, you're going to stand before God for not doing what it is that God called you to do.
Yeah. Come on.
Okay, if He's given you abilities to do whatever, and you refuse to do them because you're afraid you're going to make a mistake,
Come on, preach it.
when God comes and He's looking at you and He's judging us at that day, and I say, well, I was afraid, it's not going to go well. It's not going to go well. Now, just because, and I kind of got off track there for a minute, but as a pastor, watching how people react to one another, and watching how people come into the house of God, and watching how you sometimes you're so afraid to do anything for God. Because if I do something for God, then God's going to expect me to do something again. And it's hard sometimes to do the first thing, because once you do the first thing and maybe it doesn't go well, it's hard to get back on that horse. But you have to continue to do it. You have to continue to be what God has called you to be. Now listen, can you handle being blessed of God? Can you handle it? If God gives you a talent, you have 5 talents, do you know what to do with it?
That's good.
Can you take it and get 5 more?
Amen.
Can you take it and get 2 more? Can you take it and do what God's called you to? Listen, when you're given blessings from God, God expects you to use them.
Amen.
Okay, I'm not saying that very well. When you're given abilities by God, He expects you to use them to win the lost. He doesn't expect you to use them to impress the saved.
Come on.
Okay? I'm needed to win the lost, not impress you.
Amen.
I love you. And I want you to come back. So I don't want you to kind of like what I do. I don't want you to be bored to death. I don't want you to come and go, oh, he's preaching. I don't want you to do that. But I want you to come back. I want you to understand that I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to inspire you.
Amen.
I'm here to try to get you to understand what God's trying to do in your life. I'm here to try to preach you the Word of God correctly. So when the enemy attacks your life, you know what to do in the situation. When God gives you abilities, what you do with those abilities? Go win the lost. It's not for our glory, but it's for His glory.
Amen.
When you use His blessing, then He returns to you another blessing. What are you talking about, Brother Doug? This is what I'm talking about. When I do what God has called me to do, this is what He does. He helps me do that thing. And then another thing comes, and He helps me do that thing. Then another thing comes, and He helps me do that thing. And then by the time I realize that I'm five talents down the road, and God has helped me through all 5 talents, and He gives me another one because I'm doing something for Him. Maybe I have 2 talents, and next thing I know, I'm 2 talents down the road, so now I have 4.
Right.
I can't hide it and say I don't have anything to give God, because then I'm a liar, because God has something for you to do. When you use His blessings, He returns you with another blessing. When you abuse the blessing that God has given you, nothing should be expected from Him. What do you mean? This is what I mean. When you don't do what God has called you to do, which is win the lost, be a witness, preach, sing, shout, rip, spin, I don't know. Whatever. Teach. Whatever. Don't expect God to do anything for you. Don't expect another talent. Because if you're not using that talent, God won't give you another talent. Well, I know that's hard to swallow, but I'm just... Can you handle it? Do you know what to do with the blessing that God's given you? Do you know what to do with it? Can you handle it? Can you ingest it? Can you take care of it? Can you use it for God's glory? Can you bless somebody with something that you want yourself? What do you mean by that, Brother Jeff? This is what I mean. The servant had 5 talents. That was a lot of money back then. 5 talents. I know what it probably tells me in there. I didn't even look it up to see how much money is in modern day wealth. And you know, as a servant, he's thinking, man, that's a lot of money. But it's not mine. Can I take it and bless somebody else with what's not mine? Come on, kid, listen. Can you stand and use the things that God has given you for someone else? Can you bless somebody with something that you want for yourself? Abraham was blessed in Genesis 13, 1 through 18. I'm not going to read all that. But he was blessed. He went into Sodom. He had a son outside of marriage. He had to raise that son and let him go into the wilderness to die. He had to place his son on the altar to sacrifice him. Can you stand the blessing of God? Abraham, the father of our belief. We're grafted in the vine. We're children of Abraham. Come on, that's who we are. And we have the blessings of Abraham are mine. Can you stand? Can you stand to go into Sodom and get your nephew out of there? Can you stand to have a child outside of marriage and that messes everything up? Can you, listen, can you raise that child and send him into a wilderness to die? Can you handle what God requires to have a blessing in your life?
Amen.
Well, you know what really gets me is this. I watch people that, you know, they'll say stuff about preachers that are on television and stuff like that. And you know, I'll be honest with you, I haven't watched, I don't know when the last time I watched TBN was. And to be honest with you, or Daystar or anything like that, I just don't do that. I'm not saying there's anything against it. Watch what you want, I don't care. But I see that there's so many preachers that want what those men have, but they don't know the sacrifice that it took to get to there.
Amen.
They don't know what happened in their life. Are they willing to lose their families? You know, when Jim Baker went to jail, his son Jamie said, I was so relieved my dad was in jail. They said, what? He said, I finally got to talk to my dad, just me and him.
Amen.
Yeah.
Come on. Come on.
Are you willing to? That's tough, man. Yeah. But I was so glad when my dad went to jail because I finally got to just talk to my dad, just me and him. Wow! That's good preaching, Brother Jeff, I know.
Yes, come on.
Can you imagine the sacrifice that was given? Can you imagine the sacrifice so they could have not TBN, what was it? Praise the Lord. PTL. PTL. Can you imagine that sacrifice? They sacrificed their family because they had to keep feeding the monster. Their ministry had become a monster. And they began to eat them up. Any which of those we don't want to do, but Noah had to build an ark. You want to be blessed of God? You want to build an ark? Man, it's quiet in this church.
Come on.
It's quiet. Noah had to build an ark. He had to go gather the wood. He had his 3 sons help build this ark. Are you willing to go gather the wood to build an ark that nobody even believes it's going to flood? They don't even know what a flood is. They don't know what an ark is, but God, he's just following the plan of God. That's how I feel sometimes in this church. I'm trying to build an ark, and I don't even know what the ark is supposed to look like. I feel that way a lot. Because I'm trying to build an ark, and I'm trying to get animals in it 2 by 2, and I don't even know where I'm going to keep the animals once we get them. Where do you keep 2 mosquitoes? What do you do with them? What do you do with, 2 earthworms? I don't know. What do you do with them? What do you do with 2 giraffes? Stick their heads out the top, right? I'll send you pictures, okay? I mean, what do you do with them? What do you do with the people? Listen, okay, I'm not sure. I'm open my heart here. Ready, open. Okay. Here's the deal. We all want a church to grow. That's what everybody says now. It's not always true. That's what everybody says. We want to grow as long as we can be in control of it. What do you mean? As long as we know everybody's business, we want to open it. If they don't look like us, talk like us, and walk like us, and they have like tattoos and piercings, and they may have some homosexual things going on, some lesbian things going on. We're not sure about that. We got quiet again. We're not sure about that. But as long as they have their hair parted on the side and they have the Pentecostal look, they're good, right? But that's not what God says. So everybody wants a church to be bigger. Everyone wants to build a building. All that stuff, that sounds really cool. But what do you do when people come that you don't know? And here's this, and this church is so clannish, it's unbelievable. You watch people work. People that know each other huddle up together. Who are they? Where are they covering? Let's go get pizza. Okay, don't tell anybody. Okay, it's the truth.
Yep.
It's the truth. stay over here and help me. I don't know them. You come help me. Okay? Because I don't know them either. I don't want to know them because they're scary. That's right. I don't know them. And I believe that with me. And so, the problem with that is that when you do get bigger, you have to open your heart.
Amen.
And you have to open it up to be heard. It's just, you just have to. And 3 years ago, I stood on this pew and I said, please open your heart. Please let people come in that you don't know. Please. Please let people come that aren't like you. Please let people come that their lifestyle's not like you like. Please let them come. I didn't say we're putting them in charge of anything. Please. Please let them feel like they're at home. Please let them feel like they're cared for and they're loved. Listen. I have to get up to this now.
Come on.
Listen. I'm just going to deal with the homosexual devil that everybody thinks is the unpardonable sin. I promise you, there have been people in this church that you thought were the Christian of the top of the crust of Christianity that dealt with and had dealings with and had problems with homosexuality that you never knew about, and had you known about, you would have never thought they were who they were.
Come on.
Promise you. How do you know? Because I know.
That's good.
I've been here a long time. I know lots of stuff. I know lots of stuff about lots of people. And I don't ever tell anything because it's not mine to tell.
That's right. Come on.
It's not mine to tell. It's not mine to tell somebody's dirt. Because you know what? They can tell mine. And I don't want my dirt published, and I would never do that to anybody. I would never run up to Billy and say, you know what, you see Abel over there, you know what Abel did. I'm not doing that. So I can so we can connect. Yeah, bro. I'm not doing that. But I promise you, there's been people in this church, that if you knew the real battle with sin that they had,
Come on. Come on.
that pedestal would have crumbled and you'd have thrown them out.
Right.
I'm just asking you to please open your heart.
Amen. Come on.
Let people come to the house of God.
Yes.
Let them be loved on by God's people. Let them see the heart of Christ. I didn't say you had to agree with their lifestyle. You don't have to make it comfortable. You don't have to make it easy. But you have to love them.
That's right.
You have to care for them.
That's right.
The drug addict needs somebody to care for them.
That's right.
I didn't say be stupid,
Amen.
but love them. Don't be stupid. Don't give them money. Well, that's loving them. No, it's not. That's buying dope for them. Okay, whatever.
You can always love the person. You don't have to love their ways.
You love them? That's right. They need help. They love. Okay, I'll get off of that.
Come on.
Hallelujah. Noah had to build an ark. That's not going on this. Sometimes I'm building an ark and I don't even know how we're going to cage the animals. How we're going to do it. I don't know who's going to clean up that mess on the bottom of the ark. I'm sure Noah's glad there was a window in the top. Can somebody help me? Okay, 'cause if you have all those edibles in there, it's going to smell pretty funky.
Just a drop head.
Amen. He did which I don't want to do. He had to gather animals. He washed his people. He preached to refuse to heed his warning. Noah was a good pastor. He preached when nobody listened. And he saved his family. Something about going to heaven. There's another thing about taking somebody with you. Did I tell you the other day I was reading something, or somebody was preaching, and they said that you can't take your money with you, but your family you can take with you to heaven. Did I tell you that the other day? I was reading that the other day. I'm like, what a great statement that is. You can give your kids an inheritance, and you can give them a house, and you can let them fight over money or whatever, and who gets what, and that's all great and dandy. Or you can take them to heaven with you. What a great statement that was. Joseph was sold into slavery, he was beaten, he left for dead, thrown into prison, he was accused of rape, thrown back into prison. Can you stand and be blessed? Because Joseph became the head guy in Egypt other than the Pharaoh. Can you stand and be blessed? His daddy gave him his first coat. Potiphar gave him his second coat. And God gave him his position.
Amen.
Think about that for a second. Write that down. His daddy gave him his first coat to show his favor. Potiphar gave him his second coat to show Potiphar's favor. But God gave him his position to show him God's favor.
Amen.
Can you stand to be blessed? Can you stand to live blessed? Can you stand it? I didn't preach this like it needs to be preached. I need to shout it and run and scream it like it needs to be run and screamed. But the Lord said He would come and dwell in us, and not just with us. In 2 Timothy 1:13 through 14, I told I was reading 2 Timothy 1:13 through 14. 2 Timothy 1:13 through 14, if you'll throw that up there so I can look it up real fast. Hold fast to the form of sound words, which I have heard of me in faith and the love which is in Christ Jesus. That good thing which was committed unto thee, keep the Holy Ghost which dwelleth in us. He dwells in us.
Amen.
Guys, there's so many people out there that need God. So many of them. They need help. They need the Lord. Let's do. Giving money is not the answer. It's not. Most people, when you get money, you never see them again because it just satisfies a need for the time. Money's not your answer. You know what your answer is? Living for God. Knowing how to live for God. And let God bless you. And let God begin to bring you money into you. You can't be lazy and serve God. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are. You can't be lazy and serve God. Because God's not a lazy God. He's always doing, always moving forward, always doing something. He's not lazy. He's not. He's a Jewish God. He's out doing something. Okay? He's out moving and shaking and trying to do things. You can't be lazy and live for God. You just can't. You can't not pray. You can't not fast. You cannot read. You have to do those things. Because if you don't do those things, what happens is your spirit gets cold. And your heart gets hard. And you know what you do? We run back and get our blanket. And we get comfortable in our depression. We get comfortable in our oppression. We get comfortable in our identification as Linus. Instead of being God's person, who God is, we get comfortable in our blanket. And we find ourselves with a rag on our eye, wrapped up in a blanket after standing in a scalding hot shower. Because it's familiar. And although it hurts us, the heat of the water hurts us, the heat of the rag hurts us, it brings us some relief because it's familiar. And familiarity sometimes soothes the wound instead of just simply going forward and getting the wound healed. It's easier to soothe. You with me? You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Let's go forward and get healed. Let's be delivered. Let's do what God says to. Because can you stand in the class? I think you can. And it's going to take a while. It's going to take a little bit. It's going to take some effort on your part. Put the blanket down and never pick it back up. I don't care I don't care how cozy it is. I don't care how warm it is. I don't care how comfortable it is, how it smells. You know? It smells like you. It's my house. It's my comfort zone. Yeah, but your comfort zone's killing you. Leave it. Go do what God's called you. Be what God's called you. I think that God has done today what He wanted to do in service with whatever led Him to do. Anyway, I think tonight that I just wanted to share a little bit with you about what God has laid on my heart tonight. I didn't share a quarter of it, but I wanted to share a little bit of it just to let you know that God does care for you so greatly. He doesn't want you oppressed. He doesn't want you depressed. He doesn't want you under the foot of the devil. He wants you to have a glorious, glorious, glorious life. And I'm begging you, open your heart. Open your heart. Let people that don't look like you, act like you, smell like you. Let them be loved. Let them feel like they're loved and appreciated. It doesn't matter. You don't have to agree with the lifestyle to love them. Money's not the answer. God is. A fish will feed you. Learning how to fish will feed you a lifetime, right? I can give you money. You can go spend it in a day. Or I can show you how to live for God. Like God begin to bless you. You can never outbless God. I promise you. I promise you. I'm a living testimony. I'm a living testimony. I've come a long way from digging out change in an ashtray to pay a $2 a month pledge. I've come a long way from that. You're faithful in the $2 pledge. All of a sudden, God opens up the windows of heaven. I don't know why He does it like that. I don't know why God wants to make sure you're faithful in the $2. I don't know. I don't know. You know, you think after 6 months, you'd say, okay, but He made me do the whole 2 years. The whole 2 years. And He opened up the doors. He opened up the windows of heaven and blessed. I'm a living testimony. I am. I love you tonight. I hope you got something out of what I spoke tonight. I pray you did. Come back Wednesday night expecting God to, oh no. This Wednesday night we have a youth rally here. Be here. I want the church full. I want to show off everybody. It's a district youth rally. Have it here Wednesday night. All our youth will be out here. Our youth band will be doing worship. Our state youth director, Dallas Caps, will be speaking. And so please be here Wednesday night, the 8th, right? Is that the 8th? Wednesday night is the 8th. Please be here. Come. Bring somebody with you.